You've probably heard of the 6 Ds: digitization, deception, disruption, demonetization, dematerialization, democratization. Peter Diamandis' roadmap to exponential growth. The gospel of techno-optimists, the battle hymn of Silicon Valley. And to be fair, he almost gets it. Almost. Because buried in the 6 Ds is a quiet revolution, a realization so radical, so civilization-ending, that Diamandis himself, despite writing 3 books about abundance, still can't say the quiet part out loud. So I will. The 6 Ds don't describe the future of capitalism. They describe its death. Let's walk it through. Diamandis opens with digitization. The moment something becomes information, it enters the realm of exponential growth. Music, photos, books, DNA, manufacturing blueprints, entire economic sectors can be reduced to a few megabytes. Then comes deception. The early curve is slow, underwhelming. The incumbents laugh. They scoff at 3D printers, at solar. It doesn't scale. Until it does. Until the cost-performance curve turns vertical, and the ground drops out from under the status quo. Then disruption. Once an industry digitizes, it collapses. Newspapers, taxis, hotels. Everything that once required centralized capital is now available on demand. Airbnb owns no rooms. Uber owns no cars. Spotify owns no CDs. These platforms don't just innovate, they gut, they decapitate. So far, Diamandis still has his footing. Then comes demonetization, and here's where the cracks begin. When products and services become so cheap to replicate that money loses meaning, the pricing mechanism, the sacred altar of capitalism, starts to erode. Google doesn't charge you for search. YouTube doesn't charge you to watch. Wikipedia runs on donations. Most of the knowledge humanity has ever produced is now free. He frames this as a good thing, and it is, but he doesn't stop to ask, if price collapses, what happens to profit? Then dematerialization. Phones replace cameras, laptops replace recording studios, an entire office fits into your pocket. The tools of production collapse into code. But here's the thing, when you dematerialize something, you don't just reduce its cost, you reduce its scarcity. And when scarcity dies, capitalism dies with it. Finally, democratization, the idea that everyone has access to these tools, that knowledge is no longer gatekept, that everyone becomes a creator, that the means of production are now essentially apps. This is where Diamandis tries to stop. He wants to freeze the frame here, right before the cliff. He dreams of a world where everyone has everything and somehow, miraculously, the billionaires still win. Where abundance reigns, and yet Jeff Bezos still needs your subscription fee. Where the market disappears, but the shareholder class doesn't. And that's where the whole thing collapses under its own weight. Because what Diamandis can't admit to himself is this. When you reach peak demonetization, when marginal costs hit zero, the market is no longer just weakened, it's obsolete. You don't buy things anymore. You make them on demand in your home from air, light, and data. And the only reason we haven't fully crossed that threshold yet, the only reason the system is still standing, is because we've locked the gates with subscriptions. We've traded ownership for access, not because it's better, but because capital has no other choice. Subscription is the only model that simulates scarcity in a world where scarcity is slipping away. Netflix, Spotify, Microsoft Office, Amazon Prime, Adobe Creative Cloud. You don't own any of it. You rent the right to use what could, in many cases, be yours forever for free. Why? Because they can't let go. Because if you own the tool, you don't need the company. If you own the blueprint, you don't need the product. If you own the means of production, you don't need the market. But here's the thing. The technology doesn't care about capitalism. It keeps advancing. It keeps slashing costs. It keeps approaching zero. And once you can 3D print your food, fabricate your tools, recycle your waste atom by atom, generate your power from sunlight, there is no reason left to buy. And when there is nothing left to buy, there's nothing left to sell. And when there's nothing left to sell, the entire machinery of capital stops. This is the part Diamandis refuses to say, because saying it means admitting that his dream of a world where everyone is free and billionaires still exist is impossible. Because capitalism requires scarcity, and abundance kills scarcity. So abundance kills capitalism. And yet, that's the most beautiful thing about this moment, because it means we can finally build the world we were always promised. A world where freedom is designed into the infrastructure, where survival isn't a hustle, and joy isn't paywalled, where liberty isn't rationed by income, where eudaimonia becomes boring, where having what you need is so normal, it's no longer even a topic of conversation. Because in that world, what matters isn't profit, it's purpose. Not accumulation, but actualization. Not hustle, but becoming. This is what Enlightenment socialism understands. We don't just survive the 6 Ds. We build the next phase. Digitization, deception, disruption, demonetization, dematerialization, democratization, and then dignity. Dignity is the 7th D. Dignity is what happens when no one has to beg for basic needs. Dignity is the end of coercion. Dignity is the soil where liberty grows. Dignity is the foundation of the civilization of the mantle. Because once you have the tools, once you have the means, once you are free from fear, then you are finally free to live. And that is how abundance ends capitalism. Not with a bang, not with a revolution, but with a quiet Tuesday morning where you 3D print your coffee mug, fabricate your dinner from your kitchen wall, and spend the rest of your day becoming whoever the hell you were meant to be. The future isn't scarcity redesigned. It's capitalism deleted.